Generals, gentlemen.
Hello, welcome to a special Rise of Nations video. Woo!
Hey.
Rise of Nations Explained. So this is where we'll be ranting about Rise of Nations, what it's all about, explaining things, so hopefully people that watch our videos in the future will actually know what we're talking about. Because we posted a shoutcast earlier and it got really well received, which was kind of cool actually, a little bit surprising, but certainly welcome. So a lot of people have requested that we do a video to explain everything, so that's what we're going to be doing. So joining me is my girlfriend Katie. Ooh.
Hello.
And this is actually like a replay that we played against the bots a couple of days ago. And so we do actually have notes that we'll be covering. So there's a lot of things to mention. It's a pretty complex game. So we won't forget things, hopefully. We'll try our best.
I won't forget relics,
Oh,
which we forgot in one of our practices, and it was like, whoops.
Yeah. Yeah, relics, these cool things. All right, so the first thing that I want to talk about really is why I like Rise of Nations. And speaking for myself at least, Rise of Nations is awesome because it has like a really complex economy. It's a really complicated game. You've got 6 types of resources. There's a lot of management, a lot of you know, what do I build, when do I build it, what should I build. Like it's a lot of opportunity cost, prioritizing upgrades, military advancements. So it's pretty complex, which makes it really satisfying and compelling to play. So it isn't really much micro, but there's a lot of like simultaneous management and APM required. So it's pretty fun to play. And so Rise of Nations is actually an old game from 2003, but it got a re-release on Steam as a HD version. So you can buy that where it's compatible with modern operating systems. It has widescreen, it has nice resolutions, it works online multiplayer. So it's a good price, $20 for the expansion as well, the gold edition. So yeah, that's really it for the intro. And the first thing to discuss is the resources.
I thought we were going to do how to win first.
Oh, really? Yeah. Okay. Yeah, all right.
Okay, because how to win is of course important,
Yeah.
because you need to know how to win so that you can win the game. So I guess the most basic way to win is by conquest. So when you eliminate your enemy and their capital, and you hold on to their capital for a certain amount of time, then you win. You can also win with a territory victory, where you control, in standard games, it's 70% of the map, and you can also win by, and you have to hold that for a certain amount of time as well, and you can also win by a wonder victory. So you have to have usually at least 8 wonder points. Different wonders give you a certain amount of points, and it's usually 8 in a standard game, but that can also be changed in settings.
You know what's really embarrassing is like seeing all the relics so close to our bases that we can't see because of fog of war.
Yes. So we'll move on to resources.
Also, the entire internet is judging you for your idle villages. There we go.
See, all good.
You fixed it.
I fixed it.
Okay.
Oh, actually, which game is this?
The last one we played, I think. This is against 2 bots, by the way.
Okay. Yeah.
The bots are actually really hard in this game. Like, one of the reasons why Rise of Nations is actually cool to play is because, like, you can actually play single player against bots and it's actually fun. Whereas most RTS games, like Company of Heroes and Zero, the bots are just kind of stupid and just aren't really fun to play.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Resources?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, so resources. The most important resource is food, which you need to create villages in order to create buildings to get more resources. You can get food from farms or by fishing. It's also fairly important in the early game for aging up and library research. And you also need it for some of your other military units as well. After that, there's the resource of wood, which is actually called timber in the game, and you get it from woodcutters' camps. And it's pretty important for building buildings, really. So I think that all of the military buildings are built with wood, as well as your docks. And if you're going to have any sort of naval fleet, I'm pretty sure that all the boats, or if not most of the boats, need to have wood in them. And wood is also used to upgrade scholars, because he told me off for that, not knowing that the other day. Yes, because books. You need wood to create paper, to create books, to upgrade scholars.
Woo.
So it does make sense. Then you have metal, which you get from mines.
Metal boxes.
Metal boxes?
Never mind. It's an internet thing.
Okay.
It's an internet thing.
It's an internet thing. Okay. One day I will understand. So you need mines to get metal, and metal's mostly important for military units, as well as military upgrades. Yeah, it's mostly a unit thing. A few buildings need it, a few wonders need it, but I think it's mostly important for units. Then I'll talk about oil, even though we don't have oil yet on this map. Oil comes up in the Industrial Age. You get it by building oil wells and oil platforms, and you can increase the income with oil refineries. It's pretty important for your air units and tanks after you've upgraded your cavalry. And you also need it to age up at one of the age up things as well. I remember that. And then there's the resource of wealth. Wealth you get from markets, from taxation.
From ad revenue.
Haha, okay. So wealth in the game you get from taxation and markets and caravans from those markets. And you need that for buying scholars, for several of your units, like there's a few cavalry units that need wealth. Yeah, mostly that. You can also use it to buy more resources if you're short on a particular resource that you need.
I think I should quickly point out that that's what attrition looks like. Little red dots underneath their feet. So we'll explain that later, but that's...
We'll explain attrition later.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then there's the resource of knowledge, which is the little book in the corner there, which is generated by your scholars at universities. And you need knowledge mostly for aging up, but also for a few of the upgrades. Okay, so now I'll talk about the cities and several buildings. So cities are kind of your hubs where you build villages to build other things. You can only build cities a certain distance away from other cities, and they have to be built within your friendly territory. So obviously you build villages there, which is why they're really important. They affect your national borders, which is quite important. You can take them over, your enemy cities, which is very important. So you get their cities and then you can use them. And the one with the star next to it is your capital. It should be the one with the Senate attached to it. And when you lose your capital, or when you take someone else's capital, the person whose capital has been taken can lose the game after a certain amount of time. So I think I got everything in cities.
They can be captured, as you can see here.
They did say they could be taken over.
Okay, well, yeah, so I've taken over the city.
Yeah.
And it needs to assimilate. So you can't actually use that city until it assimilates, in which case the borders are neutralized. And then when I assimilate it, it'll then turn into my borders. I can build villages from it and so forth and use those buildings. I can't mine until it's assimilated.
Okay, good explanation. So then you've got your resource buildings, so your farms, your woodcutters camps, and your mines, which get the various resources of food, wood, and metal. You also have oil wells and oil platforms, which get oil. You've then got your, I guess you could say, like your upgrading resource buildings, so granaries, lumber mills, and smelters, which increase your income of food, timber, and metal. They also have other upgrades that help in other areas of the game, such as increased construction speed and some military benefits as well. Separate from that is the oil refinery, because when you build an oil refinery next to a city, it increases your oil income globally, whereas with granaries, lumber mills, and smelters, it only increases that income like within that city's borders. So it needs to be within the same radius as a mine or a lumber mill or a farm. So that goes through all those, and then I guess next most important is the market. Do we have a market somewhere?
Yep, this one here.
Yeah. Okay, awesome. So at markets you can get caravans which travel between your cities and give you wealth. You can also get merchants, which are used to get rare resources. There's a rare resource there, which gives you increased timber and increased knowledge, and the cost of science is reduced. Different rare resources will give you different benefits, so it's worth getting as many as possible, particularly in the early game. After that, there is, and also at markets, just before I forget, you can also, that's where you trade your resources. So If you have too much of one resource, you can sell it. If you need more of another resource, you can buy it with wealth. Next up is the temple, which I'm sure that we have somewhere. Temples are important for taxation, and taxation is one way to get wealth. They also affect your national borders, and when they're next to a city, they increase that city's hit points depending on the level of upgrades that you have. So if you're attacking a city, it's good to take out the temple first, otherwise you can be there for a bit longer. Next up is the university, which contains scholars that you have to buy with wealth, and they give you knowledge, and you can also upgrade your scholars there to make them more efficient at giving you knowledge. Then there's the Senate, which I quickly talked about earlier. It's attached to your capital city, and you can also do all of your government upgrades there, which Callum will talk about later, so I won't go too far into them. Then, of course, there's the library, which is very important. You need your library to do your main research, which you can see at the top there, and Callum will talk about later.
Oh, actually, we didn't mention that you can garrison cities, and so like, they'll fire arrows out of it.
Yes, you can garrison cities. I'm sorry, I forgot that. Tried to remember everything. I tried.
Okay, is that it?
Yeah, there's upgrades, but I think I've covered that.
Okay, cool.
So
then there's, of course, the military buildings as well. So you start off with the barracks. That's like the main one. Infantry are generally a bit more abundant than cavalry units, but all the units in Rise of Nations are interwoven in a rather complex counter system. So you have 3 types of infantry: the light infantry, heavy, and archers. So this is in Classical Age at the moment. So you've got basically like slingers and javelineers are the light infantry. Your heavy infantry are like pikemen, so they're like anti-cavalry. And then bowmen, which are like obviously people with bows, which are anti-heavy infantry.
I thought you were going to talk about the other buildings now, but
Oh yeah.
okay.
Well, anyway, I mean,
that's okay. I was just like,
we'll go with the flow.
I was like looking on this, going like, isn't that later?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
So that's the barracks. You also have scouts, which like reveal around them. They're good for scouting, obviously. And
they find relics.
They find relics. I mean, everything can find relics, but scouts are better at it. And then you have also flamethrowers, which can clear garrisons, but they're not until Industrial Age. Then you have your stables, which also has 3 types of units. I guess I might as well just explain it now. It's probably going to be easier to just have it in the one go.
Yeah.
And so
military is your forte.
Yeah, military is my jam, as you can see here. Basically, they've had this permanent ongoing battle, and you and your bot have just been chilling. You know, just chilling, getting your 3 cities, getting your economy up. So that's kind of one thing about Rise of Nations is you can focus more on military, you can focus more on economy. Yeah. Anyway, so I kind of mentioned the barracks units. Light infantry counters archers. Archers counter phalanxes, and these names change as you age up. So next tier will be pikemen in Medieval Age, and then your cavalry, you've got light cavalry, which counter javelineers and are really good at raiding like siege units. Heavy knights counter both javelineers and archers, so they're a lot better overall, but they cost different types of resources which are more expensive. And then horse archers are more harassment for like villages, caravans, merchants. Also, they do counter heavy infantry as well. So in a multiplayer game, you generally see them open up with the stables, get a horse archer out, try and harass villagers, then use light cavalry to counter the horse archers as well, and then from there you start then sprawling into barracks units to counter that with phalanxes and so forth. Then you've also got your siege factory. Here we go. Yeah, so this will build siege units. So this is going to build a catapult. Later on, trebuchet, howitzer, that sort of stuff. And so siege units have extra damage against buildings, so they're quite powerful against that. But the main thing with siege units is they have a lot of range. So you can outrange cities, you can outrange forts and towers, because if you just attack with just infantry, you'll just lose them all to garrison units, towers and forts and cities and so forth. So you want to reduce a city to 0 with a siege and then attack with infantry to actually capture it. Siege Factory also builds the supply wagons. So with that, it gives your units supply, so they won't receive attrition damage if they're in enemy territory. You saw that earlier, the little red dots. It's even it here actually. If you're in enemy territory, your units will die over time because they need food. Food is good. Or you also get your anti-air units from your Siege Factory in Industrial Age. So that's all the units. But then you've also got like naval units. You have a dock. build fishing boats, which are pretty good for generating food as well as wealth. And you fight over those fishing. So you have, once again, 3 tiers, or 3 types of naval units: light, heavy, and then you have like fire rafts and submarines. So this counter system is like light counters fire rafts counters heavy counters light. And then you also have like land units transform into transport ships when they cross water. Light ships counter those transport ships. So there's also missile silos. Missile silos fire nukes and cruise missiles, which are basically anti-building. And the airfield, you have fighters, bombers, and helicopters. Bombers are good against buildings, obviously. Planes are good against like units and other air units, and helicopters are anti-tank. That's all the units. Oh, apart from, well, I'll say that later, generals and spies and whatnot. But yeah, that's it. Then the next part that I'll be discussing is the library research.
Have you gone through the other like military buildings, like the airbase and missile silo?
Sort of. Yeah,
sort of vaguely.
Yeah, obviously you need like an airbase to build planes. Oh, also with planes, they need to
They need to refuel.
Yeah, they need to refuel. This is like a huge attack. So this is kind of where I'm like, Katie, can you please attack them? Because they're both attacking me. Yeah, the AI help each other out. Yeah, so helicopters don't require fuel, but planes do. Taking a lot of attrition damage though, which is kind of silly. They don't have any supply here. I think I only have a level 1 attrition, so I'm not doing a lot, but it certainly weakens them a little bit. Yeah, anyway, so as for library research. So library research is pretty fundamental to Rise of Nations. So there's 5 upgrades. You can advance through the ages. So currently I'm medieval, but then I'll go to the gunpowder age. So there's ancient, classical, medieval, gunpowder, enlightenment, industrial, modern, and information age. And in order to do that, you have to have X amount of other library researchers. So the 4 other types is military, civic, commerce, and science. Won't go into too much detail, but basically science makes everything cheaper and is required for certain upgrades in certain buildings. Commerce increases your economy. You have a commerce limit. You can't get more income than what you have of your commerce cap. So for example, at the moment, I have 200 commerce cap. So my wood is actually capped at 200. That's why it's flashing yellow. So even though I have more than 200 income, I'm only getting 200 because my commerce is capped. If you actually look at it, you see I have 216 fuel. Food. Fuel is company of heroes. 216 food. So the reason why my food is actually exceeding my commerce cap is because of pyramids. Certain wonders give certain benefits. For example, this one gives more food rate and increases my food cap as wealth as well. So civic increases your city borders, increases your territory, and then unlocks temple upgrades. And then military is required to upgrade units, as well as then makes units cheaper, and then also unlocks upgrades from your fort. So that's it for the library. Oh, also at the end of the game, when you unlock all of those, you have like 4 additional tiers of library research, which then give you other like really strong advantages. Like one of them you get units instantly, one of them is like an anti-nuke, one of them you assimilate cities instantly, the other one unlocks like the high tier bombers and stealth bombers and so forth. So, yeah.
Okay, so you've pretty much covered commerce cap, so I'll just skip straight through to wonders. Wonders are worth a different amount of wonder points each, and they all give certain benefits. They can increase your commerce cap, which we previously talked about, but they can also give you other increases as well, such as national borders. Some of them act as structures themselves, so the Forbidden City in itself is a large city, and the Red Fort, it acts as a fort, like a super fort.
Super fort is the understatement of the century.
I don't know what else to call it. Let's just run with super fort.
Okay.
Yes, we'll run with super fort. And in a standard game, you need 8 wonder points to win, but you can change that in settings. Then we'll talk about territories and attrition. So the little red circles underneath those guys. Are those my guys?
Yeah, it's okay. But supply wagon's coming. It's okay.
Yeah, supply wagon's coming.
Here's some food cross-running.
So you need a supply wagon, which is there, or a despot, which was also up there, in order to stop attrition. And attrition basically damages any units that come onto your land without a despot or a supply wagon. So it's good. It hurts them. And you can upgrade your attrition at keeps or later in the game bunkers. Yeah, so when you upgrade it, it hurts them more, which is good. And so it's pretty much anytime when they're in your territory. Territory is pretty important. So if we look on the map down there, you probably can't see where I'm pointing, but you can see where the mouse is, and you can put the mouse on the map. And so the blue area is Callum's area, red area is my territory. I just say territory rather than area. Sometimes I just call it area, but it's territory. Territory is the correct term. And so you can only build buildings within that territory. Some buildings have to be built directly around cities, but others, like the woodcutters' camps, as long as it's in your territory, it's fine. And of course territory is important because you can win with territory if you get 70% in a standard game, but you can also change that in settings. Then we were going to talk about faction differences as well. So there's 24 different factions in the game. I was playing Russians. Which one were you playing?
I was playing Aztec because I wanted to go for like a really early rush. So Aztec, you get like you get free light infantry. They also like are cheaper and stuff.
Yeah. So basically, each faction has their own bonuses. So in the Russian, they also have like every faction also has unique units. So in Russian, they have a series of light cavalry, which is unique. And they also get a free civic research, which is awesome. And they have instant attrition and attrition research benefits, which is great. But each faction has different benefits. We won't go through all of them, otherwise we'd be here all day. But you can kind of play around, play with the different factions, see what works for you and your gameplay type.
I think one thing to mention is that the different units are just upgrades. Like they're not really.
They're usually like cheaper and faster and stronger.
Yeah, they don't actually change the counter system. They fulfill the same role. The only exception is like war elephants, which are like Persian and Indian, and they're like kind of like this kind of different. You don't normally have elephants, but yeah, like a heavy the heavy cavalry is the same role as upgraded heavy cavalry if you're Greeks or whatever. So.
Yeah.
I actually forgot a thing as well. I didn't mention forts and keeps. So we kind of mentioned them roughly, but basically towers and keeps are like a little defensive turret that has upgrades in it. You can also garrison it to increase its firepower, likewise with cities and forts. The more you have inside, the more damage it does, but only up to a certain level. So my city has 3 garrison power, my fort will have like 6. So when you put more units in, that garrison power will increase, but once it hits the maximum, there's no point garrisoning it even further. Forts are basically stronger than towers, but they also actually project territory, so they're really good for like holding apart. They have a lot more like health as well, and they produce general spies and have some upgrades that increase borders and increase your general's efficiency. Oh, and there's also anti-air towers. And lookouts. So anti-air is obviously anti-air. Lookouts are kind of crap, don't really do anything.
Yeah, so you've been through all your bit, which you kind of did in the early bit, and yeah, all good?
My turn?
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
It was your turn, and I thought that you were kind of doing
Okay.
your talk, and
That's
I was
fine.
like, okay.
Alright, so next is governments. So when you look at your Senate, mine's here. So there's 3 different tiers of upgrades. Which are classical, gunpowder, and industrial age. And so pretty much the main differences is like the left tree, which is kind of the red tree. That's like cheaper units. Totalitarian, if we want to get fancy. We love getting fancy, don't we?
Yes, fancy is good.
So there's despot, monarchy, and socialism. And so it's like cheaper barracks, cheaper stable, cheaper factory units, and so forth. So that's cheaper units. The other side, the green tree, the consensus, republic, democracy, and capitalism, it's like economic upgrades. Republic's more commerce cap, cheaper upgrades, more oil. So not only do you get those like global upgrades and those benefits, the actual like governor is different. So my governor, who is a president, that's from democracy, he gives healing, which is awesome. Healing is really good. Whereas I think Katie's is monarchy, or maybe it's still only disposition. Well, then this is the bots anyway. So currently the bot is attacking her capital, which is bad, but it's okay because I think she's killing him. These are only decoys, I think. Yeah, these are decoys, they're doing nothing.
Yeah, but when you're playing, you can't tell.
Yeah, that's right. Unless you have scouts.
Yes.
So the despot gives supply. So like a lot of people rush Despot in the early game just so you have supplies, so you can use your ranged cavalry early on, because you can't get supply wagons until medieval age. With Despot you can get classical. So also then there's other things like later on they get like more line of sight and stuff. So basically the government's, it's like a global upgrade, and then also the governor itself has certain benefits. Yeah, and that's it for governments. So then there's units I've explained all these. Yeah, so the other thing I haven't explained is generals and spies. So generals you build from your fort. The generals, it gives the same like bonuses, well some of the same bonuses as a governor, where you get the armor bonus. The governors get more as well later on, but they get the armor bonus. So it's always really important to have either a general or a governor like near your units. Governor is referring to either a senator, despot, whatever your leader is. So you get bonus armor, which you can upgrade from the fort. You also get certain abilities. So there's 3 standard abilities. There's forced march, which is a sprint. There's entrench, which like gives them extra armor, but only towards the front, so you can flank it. But also you can't move it, and it's like only stationary and only in friendly territory. So it's kind of hard to use that. It's really defensive. Decoys, it just creates fake units which don't do any damage and die instantly, but they can use to like distract units, divert them away, or just like soak up damage.
It's also kind of like intimidation. Like,
yeah.
Like, because when you can't tell if it's a decoy or not, and you have this massive army which is actually only half the size.
Yeah.
You know, when it looks like a massive army, it's a lot more terrifying.
You cry a little bit inside.
Yes, inside, not on the outside. Too tough to cry on the outside.
Good. So ambush, this is specific to that changes. Okay, so ambush, that's like the tier 1 and tier 2 type. That just cloaks units even when they're moving, just not when they're attacking, obviously. Later on you can get that bribe, so it bribes units. Which moves on to the spies. So spies are basically for bribing. They're still a unit essentially. So they turn the unit onto your side, and you can't actually see the spies. They're actually cloaked, so you need to reveal them as spies, with either spies or scouts. Scouts are better; they have more detection radius.
And they can kill the spies.
Yeah, and exactly. Scouts have a counter-intelligence ability. And once the spy finishes its ability, then it's revealed. Then you can kill it afterward, but you've already lost a unit at that stage. And they also can like give vision of enemy buildings and can tell you what they're building without upgrading and so forth. I think that's it.
Okay, so we've described most of the in-game stuff and explained how that works. We were going to talk quickly about settings. So there's different map types that you can have. We finishing this game, or do you want to go out?
Oh no, this is okay. Just yeah. So that was the old world.
Yeah. So there's different map types. Some of them are completely terrestrial, others are islands, some have got massive amounts of ocean, and that kind of, it changes the gameplay that you have. In some you can have massive naval battles, and in others, like, naval powers don't really give you much of an advantage. There's also a differing amount of resources. So when you play in something like the Amazon rainforest is what it's called. It's the Amazon something. I think it's the Amazon rainforest. That's got lots of resources, so it's very, very easy to pick those up. Whereas in other games, like I think it's the Sahara, isn't it? Is low on
everything. Apart from oil, actually.
Well, apart from oil, it's low on pretty much everything apart from oil. And other than that, there are other settings that you can change as well as the map type. Or do you want to talk more about?
Wow, such trees! So many trees.
Yes, so it's small little patches, which means that you have to sort of waste more resources of foods, getting several different woodcutters camps. So, yeah. Yeah,
one thing that we didn't mention is, like, the more buildings you build, it actually increases. So, like, a farm costs me 60 now, but if I were to build 10 of them, it would go up in cost. That's a little thing. The other thing I didn't actually mention as well is, like, different types of units cost different resources, so that affects their viability. So, like, your light infantry, Davelineers, and your light cavalry only cost food and lumber, so that makes them, like, really spammable. So it makes them easy to build. But, like, heavy infantry and heavy cavalry are generally better, but because they cost, like, wealth and metal, it makes them a lot harder to build. But then at the same time, there's still the counter system, so you still have to factor in that. We didn't actually mention relics again, which is kind of ironic because we laughed about how we did before.
Oh, we did kind of talk about relics.
Well, yeah, when you capture a relic, you get a certain amount of resources. So in the early game, it's really important because you don't have much resources. And the more science you have increases your relic income. So yeah, that's it really.
And then we're going to talk about the other settings that you can change prior to gameplay. So it's pretty much you can change the game speed, you can change which age you start at, you can change the population cap, but I don't know actually who uses that. It's pretty much good just to keep it at 200. You can choose the size of the towns that you start with. Yeah, you can change the victory rules as well. So you can make it so that you need more wonder points or that you need more or less territory. Yeah, and there's a few different modes as well. I generally play like survival of the fittest or like 2v2.
I think it's actually no coincidence that there's Uluru like in the middle every time on Australian Outback. Like they could have at least shaped it like Australia.
Yeah, it's just kind of like a blob, but Uluru is the important part of Australia. This is how us Australians
Not to scale.
like orientate.
Uluru isn't actually 1/10 of the country.
No, but it's a good orientation landmark. You go inwards towards Uluru, and if you see Uluru, then you're not going to the coast. So
Well, more accurately, you would be like, yay, forest, desert,
yeah,
desert.
there needs to be a lot
Yay,
more
forests.
deserts. Also, I see no kangaroos.
And you would like only be able to build cities around the edges.
Yeah, and also if it was like Australian like forests, like they'd be kind of yellow and brown. Australia's not a very green place unless it's actually raining for once. Oh, again, like in the eastern states, it rains. It rains a lot more over there. But yeah, not the most Australianly accurate map.
Is that native fauna?
Does not look like it, unless it's like at the top of Queensland in the Daintree rainforest.
Right. Anyway, that's it really for the video. So hopefully that helped explain it. Hopefully for our future Rise of Nations cast, you'll be able to actually understand what we're referring to and so forth. So if you have any questions or anything, leave some comments and we'll hopefully explain things that we may have missed out. But yeah, that'll really wrap it up. So thanks for watching. Subscribe for more Rise of Nations content.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Hopefully we got everything.
Yeah, probably didn't. It's alright.
We tried. Good effort.
Good effort. Good stuff. Alright, cool. Cheers.